I just took ownership. I said, if this is what I want, if this is what I want to do, how am I going to get it done? As opposed to looking at the top of the mountain saying, I have no idea how to get there.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. And today we have a great guest. I can't tell you over the course of my playing career how many times I had people walk up to me and said, well, yeah, if I wanted to play professional football, I could have played professional football. And most of those guys maybe were good high school football players, could have been good college players, but they didn't really understand kind of the level it takes to be that pro level athlete. Well, today, my guest was a college basketball player who then went on to become a pro tight end / move guy / sniffer / he is a guy that became the all-around Swiss Army knife in the NFL. And so we're going to talk about how that happened. We're going to talk about his evolution on that road. But right now I want to welcome Eric Swoope. Great day, everyone. I'm Mike Pawlawski, former world champion quarterback, serial entrepreneur, and award-winning TV producer and host. I've lived a life dedicated to mastery through performance and mindset integration. Each week, I'll bring you the insights, strategies, and stories from some of the world's top performers to help you unlock your greatness. Whether you're an athlete aiming for the top or an executive driving your team to victory, this is where you learn how to train your greatness to become an everyday great. Now let's get after it. Eric, thanks for coming on. I think your story is amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to dive in. Let's do it.
Yeah, this is great stuff. So first off, talk to me, because I know that you grew up in Southern California, and I knew that you grew up a basketball player. And so let's talk about that. I didn't get into that kind of in the intro. You became a college basketball player. You went on to become this great college basketball player. But how did that start for you? You grew up in Elsinore, not far from where I grew up in Yorba Linda. Talk to me about what it was like out there for you and what led to your basketball career.
Yeah, so my journey started with trying a little bit of everything, right? As a kid, my parents were just pushing me. Myself, I have an older brother, Evan, who's 4 years older than me, and it was just, hey, get outside, go do something, find out what you like. I was a very tall kid, so just to put in perspective, by the time I was 11, I was already 6'1" with a size 13 shoe, so
oh boy,
I was a big boy at an early age. So let's just say basketball, you could argue, chose me. But funny enough, the actual way I got into this journey was soccer started off as my passion, and I wanted to get into club sports instead of just playing like the local seasonal, in my community. And the soccer tryout for the Nike team was a $180 entry fee. The basketball team, which was the following day, was free. The decision was made right there. And I joined, got into like small AAU circuit, was just trying to see if I liked this level of competition. I found myself as a kid just craving opportunities to play with my older brother, to play with my dad, to play against guys who in my mind were better than me, and see if I could hold my own. And that quickly led into my AAU journey. And from there is kind of where the story gets fun.
Well, but having the older brother, and I had the same exact experience, right? I had the older brother as well. You end up playing up the whole time, right?
Yeah.
And so nowadays, when we talk about young kids, we're always trying to kind of protect them. I hear people protect them and not put them out there and not, make them stretch. But stretching at a young age, especially, is really a big part of becoming a better athlete, in my opinion. How did it affect you?
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree more with you. It was the same, and we'll get into this, but at every level is anytime you're around someone who has greater wisdom, experience, or knowledge, that's the value gain. That's the value added that you can then apply to your lifestyle or your gameplay. And for me, it was exactly that. It's like, yeah, I love playing with my friends. Shoot, they're my childhood friends. I grew up in a neighborhood of basically all boys. We were in a large cul-de-sac, so every game was up. But very quickly, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to notice maybe I'm good at this, or maybe I just like this a little bit more. So where is it more difficult? It naturally was like, okay, well then I'm going to play with my older brother's friends. I'm going to play with my dad's friends. And the blessing in it, I think that sometimes gets overlooked, is now you have a challenge on your shoulders. You're not just going to play for fun. Yes, don't get me wrong. Every sport you play, it's a child's game. It's always fun. But there's an element of, okay, now I'm here actually to compete. Now I'm starting to build a reputation when I come out. Now I'm starting to have clout, or whatever other buzzword you want to use, that was something that I enjoyed, was like, okay, when the Swope family shows up, when we come up to a certain event, all of us are involved. We're all going to work hard. We're all going to play hard. And for me, that was everything. So spending that time with my brother, spending that time with my dad, and them not making things easier because I was the baby in the family, that was never even like a concept. It was like, look, son, you either work hard and figure it out, or you just have some tough days at the office. And that mentality was then applied to everything that I did.
Boy, the ability to figure things out and to get through that, right? Angela Duckworth writes about grit in her book, and that's it, right? Having to figure out the hard stuff day in, day out, and get through it, and then have some success. What a difference maker. Obviously, you had success at the high school level because you wanted to play college ball. Talk to me about that. I know that your family like made a big commitment to you in high school.
Yeah. So again, going into that AAU journey, was starting to play in LA, and believe it or not, this is why, I mean, for so many reasons, I'm thankful for my family, but in particular, when AAU basketball started going well and I started playing up, we started doing a lot of tournaments in Los Angeles. Now, for those who aren't familiar with where both of us grew up, Lake Elsinore is about, give or take, about 70 miles from greater Los Angeles. And most of the tournaments, if you want to see the top talent, you need to go to Los Angeles. That's just a fact. So I joined a team that was played out of Westchester High School, which the cool thing in LA is Westchester High School was sponsored by Kobe. Fairfax High School was sponsored by LeBron. So you wanted to be in that general vicinity where there was just a lot of talent always coming up. My team happened to practice out of Westchester. I was living in Lake Elsinore. We practiced 3 times a week and played games on weekends. So I spent a lot of time sitting in LA traffic, getting very familiar with that. And the cool thing is a group of my teammates at the time went to this school called Harvard Westlake. Now, Harvard Westlake is considered the top day school in the country, basically meaning it's not a boarding school. You don't sleep overnight, but it is a private school. And I had never heard of it. All the tournaments I had played, all the different things I did kind of bouncing around the city. It's like, what is this? And the way I got introduced to Harvard Westlake was they had a big showcase. I forgot exactly what high school it was at, but there was this team coming in town. And a gentleman I'd never heard of named OJ Mayo was in town for his big debut in Southern California. And that was my first time seeing them. And at the time, Harvard Westlake had a gentleman named Alex Stevenson, went on to Carolina, I believe, transferred to UCLA after that, played overseas for a long time. These were 2 powerhouse programs, and this was everything that I was craving. My dream was always to be a freshman on varsity. And long story short, when you apply to Harvard Westlake, you do an entrance exam, you do in-person interviews, you do a little bit of everything, literally like getting into college. And I kept being told, if you get in, you get a big box. If not, you get a letter in the mail. So after every tournament, it was coming home, it was checking that front door. And one day that big box did show up, and I still am trying to wrap my head around this, but my family, instead of saying, oh, go live with your grandparents who were in Inglewood at the time, not terribly far from the school, we're actually going to relocate. We're going to pack up. We're going to move. This is going to change the whole family dynamic, but this is an investment in me and in my journey. And that's where things got very, very real for me.
No doubt. I mean, that is a huge commitment, right? Family packs up, moves to LA. You guys are putting on over 600 miles a week in terms of travel to and from LA at that point. So that's like, I can imagine your parents are like, okay, but at least we're done driving.
Exactly.
But the move is not just, it's not a lateral move to move from Lake Elsinore to LA. Like, it's more expensive in LA. It's a big city in LA. Property values are more, like, everything is a little bit tougher going to LA. And so as a young kid, we don't always have a sense of kind of finances and everything going on around us. But you had to have a sense that had to create some pressure for you, a little stress.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we didn't buy for that exact reason. We were trying to find ways to make it cost friendly. We rented. So basically every year I was at Harvard Westlake, we moved to a different place, trying to cut costs, trying to save. My brother had graduated from high school. He was figuring out his journey. He was going to different junior colleges, trying to get into a different program. So there was a lot of moving pieces. And then on top of that, my mom, who had been a librarian at the elementary school level my entire life, it was really hard to try and find a good gig in LA County versus Lake Elsinore USD, where, she was very familiar with everyone. So this move in every way, shape, and form was taking a bet, was taking a chance on their youngest son in hopes that I realize something that I feel deeply in my heart. I can do this, and this can help all of us. So those 4 years, is amazing as they are, as I reflect on them, came with a lot of stress, came with a lot of anxiety, and reality set in very quickly that these are human beings that we don't know if this is going to work out. Like, I didn't know if I was going to pass. This was the most academically stimulating place available. I had no idea if I could even handle those moments.
Yeah, and coming from Lake Elsinore, not a knock on Elsinore, right? Some good schools, good teachers out that way. But when you have a school in LA that's geared towards academics, you're going to get some of the cream of the crop in terms of instructors and students. And so that must have been a culture shock going in there in terms of your new classmates.
Yeah. So actually, to your point, when I left, or when we moved from Lake Elsinore at the time, we had the lowest SAT scores of any public school system actually in the state of California. So it was culture shock. Let's just say, yeah, it was through and through. And for myself, and this is kind of what a lot of guys face when they do get to college, is I was exposed to the socioeconomic side of things, right? So born in the inner city, moved out to Lake Elsinore. Those culture clashes had their different, issues that I dealt with growing up. But then going to a place where it's like, okay, this is a place that has the wealthiest people you've ever seen, just as much as someone who got in because they put their time in. And the very quick thing I found out was everyone had a skill. Didn't matter your background, didn't matter where you came from. If it was basketball, you were brilliant and you play basketball, or you were brilliant, you were an engineer, you were in theater, you were doing this, you're doing that. And it's so cool. Even, to this day, so many of my classmates are like changing the world, and it blows my mind, making iPhone apps before that was even a thing. And, for myself, again, not someone that I had passion in school, but didn't really know what it felt like to study and really understand information that's being put on you. And one of the base rules, I'm not sure if it still is, but when I was there, you had 8 periods, and every class, which you had the option to choose, the professor could give you what they felt was 45 minutes worth of homework. What they felt was 45 minutes worth of homework.
Wow.
So most, early on, I was taking, let's just say, 6 to 7 classes with 1 free period. So I'd like give or take an hour to myself, knowing I have about 3 hours plus of homework on the back end. Plus, I was the 3rd freshman to make the varsity team in the history of Harvard-Westlake School. So there was like a lot.
Holy smokes. I mean, if you think about that, if you've got 45 minutes of homework per class, and you'd say you're taking 6 periods of class, right? That's 270 minutes of homework. That's 4.5 hours of homework a night if they max it out.
Let's just say I had a lot of 2 a.m. crashing down, a lot of long nights, early hours type situation.
Yeah, 45 minutes by their standards. What do you think is 45 minutes, right? And then you're coming and you're trying to make up ground, right? Coming into Harvard-Westlake. I had a very similar experience. I came from public schools, Yorba Linda, and went to Servite my freshman year. And it was like, it was super rich. The change in the curriculum went from kind of this 1 inch deep but wide at the public school to this, much more narrow but super deep dive. And I was left a little bit lost when I got there.
Yeah, I definitely know the feeling. Going from, and I'm not sure if you dealt with this as well, but class sizes, right? I went from maybe 35 to 45 to some of my classes had 7 people. So there is no like, oh, I'm hiding in the back and I'm not here. It's like, no, we as a unit in this class are going to strive for our best with this knowledge. And kind of the story that got me going, or that got me to realize that this opportunity was for me, but I had to take ownership of it, was early in my freshman year. So there's 2 campuses at Harvard-Westlake. There's a middle school campus, technically that's 7 to 9, and then the upper school or high school campus is 10 to 12, which is in Studio City. The middle school is right by UCLA, it's a beautiful campus. Anyways, I'm in my first Europe and world, like deep history class, kind of intro to high school level history, and loved my opportunity. And I'm studying away. I take my first test, I get a 61. Keep in mind, we're like 4 weeks into this big move, all these things happening, trying to get my bearings, and I'm already failing classes. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. So let's just say the first time, I think I studied for about 2.5 weeks. Okay, I'm like, okay, this time from the moment we start the next chapter, like I'm all in. We're reviewing every day. I'm going to figure it out. So I put give it about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks of studying, and I get a 62. And I'll never forget that moment. And I was inducted into my sports Hall of Fame a couple of years back, and I connected with my guidance counselor, who's now head of the middle school, and he shared this story with me. I had totally forgot this, but when I got that 62, I went to his office and I showed him what I had, and I said, look, this is not a reflection of me, my passion, my commitment to this opportunity. Like, I am taking all this serious, and I promise you, I will figure this out. Now, he laughed in my face again. It's freshman year. I'm the new guy. Again, this is a place where folks have been in this system now for several years. It's their third year, so they're familiar with the studying protocols. I didn't. Now, the biggest change that happened in that moment was in public school, you don't go to your professors really unless you're in trouble, right? Unless you get kicked out of class, unless your parents are coming because you made a mistake. Well, this is a college preparatory school, so there's office hours, meaning professors available anytime for any questions, anything you need. That made no sense to me at the time.
I concur. I ended up in a public high school after survey. I went back. It didn't fit me, but I went back and like I got to that public school experience. I got to Cal and office hours. I was like, what are office hours? I have no idea what that is until I got to college.
Exactly. And once I learned what that was, and I was like, oh, so I can go and make sure I'm educating myself the right way and ask and learn how to ask poignant questions. Asking for help is what I'm trying to reiterate. It's like, I learned, oh, I don't have to do this by myself. I don't have to push everyone away and figure it out on my own. I actually should ask my classmates and talk to my professors. Immediately after that conversation, let's just say you didn't see me on campus. I was either in the library, I was at office hours, because I understood I had an uphill journey ahead. From that moment on, honor roll, A's, B's, all the good things. And I was able to really like assimilate myself with Harvard Westlake. And from there, I mean, it was such a beautiful journey.
That is fantastic. And what an incredible lesson to learn at such an early age. Because like it takes adults a long time, if ever, to learn how to ask for something that they need. It's why so many people aren't successful at sales or other outside stuff, because making that ask, you always feel like it makes you feel lesser than if you go and ask for that help. And now I think people, they have this, the fear of being rejected, that fear of societal kind of shutdown on you if you go and ask for help. And I think that lesson at an early age and creating that practice is a powerful lesson to learn at that age. I assume, obviously, that was a huge piece of your success at Harvard Westlake in the end.
Yeah, that was. It was there's kind of three key moments. One was that learning to ask for help. Two was I kind of hinted at this, I had like crippling anxiety from this whole experience, right? There was so much pressure that
Sure. At that age.
Exactly. This is 14, 15 years old.
When you already feel awkward and you're like, absolutely, all the bad stuff's going on, you think that you're the only one in the world having these feelings.
Exactly. And then, seeing these folks, everyone seems so smart and so talented, and these families are so successful. So they just know. And realistically, it's like, no, the parents have an idea. We're all just figuring this out. And kind of the second and third kind of blend together, but the anxiety portion came in my first time taking midterms, because we took it with the whole school involved. So your entire class would take whatever their specific final was. And I had crippling writer's block on my first English final. That happened. And the same time, I started experiencing panic attacks on the basketball court. It was my first time, because AAU, you travel all over. It's maybe your family. It was my first time playing in front of where like I can look into the crowd and I know everybody. Like I know a fun fact about every soul that's sitting here watching me. And again, I'm the third freshman on varsity. I need to produce. The cool thing that came from that is I actually found yoga and meditation. And that ended up being, between that and asking for help, became my two building blocks that helped me get to Miami and get to the pros, so on and so forth.
Boy, talk about an old soul. Right? Who at 14 and 15 years old is introduced to yoga and meditation in our country, right? In the U.S., That doesn't happen.
No.
And then who is taught that not only should you ask questions, but you are fully encouraged to ask for help. Like those two things, sometimes we get these disabilities or these problems, anxiety and panic attacks in your case, I think so that we can get the solutions when we need them. I think that's kind of part of, we run into these roadblocks and we can either make them barriers, in which case we shut down and we go away, or we can figure out a way to work around. So just obstacles and having people there to support you in that. What a rich environment you had for high school, for your experience, and an incredible gift that your family gave you in doing that as well. Because I'm sure there was home pressure as well.
Oh yeah.
Everything's on the line, so we got to make this work. And I just imagining this. I remember my freshman year at Servite and how much stress and anxiety I had. And I didn't make the varsity team. I was the sixth man on the freshman team for basketball at that point. I tore a ligament in my foot going into football, so I didn't get to play football that year. But it was okay. I got in water sports. I played water polo, and I realized that I am a land animal, period. That's like, I am not. But those dudes were born in the water. They live in the water. They're great in the water. I'm a land sport guy. I figured that out my freshman year at Servite, so it's all good. All right, so let's talk about now. You have this great experience, this stressful experience, but then now you become the high school player that everybody hoped you would be, obviously, because you end up at Miami. Talk to me about that journey, becoming that high school player, what that was like, and then how you ended up at Miami.
Yeah, so again, that foundation, kind of like those rough points of the early couple of years at Harvard Westlake is truly what has set me up, I feel like, with everything moving forward. So going into my junior season, it was kind of like a lot of the seniors and folks had taken off. So there was a passing of the torch, if you will, where it's like, okay, now myself and a number of my closest friends, we're now the leaders to run this pack. And we ended up winning the CIF. We run Mission League, which was our league, which is typically quite good, I'd say, in Southern California for basketball. But we came up short in state. And at the time, the interest that I had garnered was primarily like mid-major schools, most of the Mountain West, not Gonzaga, but most of the Mountain West. A lot of smaller local schools were showing interest. But my passion was like, if I'm as good as I think I am, I want to go where the best basketball is played. And in my 17, 18-year-old brain, that was the ACC. Didn't care the school, didn't care the name. My biggest thing was, because I came from Harvard Westlake, I want to go to a place that academically, if it's not at this bar, is at least chasing that bar. And I want to go to a place where I'm exposed to as many things as possible, so I can just start to answer these, like, who am I and what am I doing? So my senior year, now that I've gotten comfortable with, I was doing yoga every morning at 6 a.m., office hours, all these things. What I was doing was building systems for success. So my senior year, my dad and I, we sat down and said, okay, this is the big year. Obviously, you have some opportunities, but they're not the ones that you want. I think at the time, I was in conversation with UNLV, Harvard had showed interest, San Diego State had shown interest, and then again, most of the Mountain West and Big Sky. But I still didn't have that ACC look. So we set a plan. We said, okay, if every quarter you can score 5 points and get 2 rebounds, that will make you a 2010-ish. If you shoot for that goal, you'll be about a 2010 guy, which is more than enough that we can start to garner some opportunities for conversation. I ended up doing that. My senior average was 21-9. And my breakout moment, I'm forever thankful for this. My closest friend, Mike Antonasio, he sat me down because I was trying to play like the folks I was seeing in the ACC, shooting shots. And I dunked the ball for the first time at 12. Let's just say I was like a freak athlete. So right. my life was above the rim looking down. Like I'm just being frank. I didn't shoot a lot of shots, but I was very efficient with my decision making. And he sat me down before kind of like our league play and was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're trying to be something you're not. Just own who you are, and that will get us where we need to go. And again, 17-year-old boys don't talk to each other like that. It's just like, oh yeah, we're just doing our thing, whatever. But he sat me down. I was like, dude, we're coming up short, and I'm just gonna be real. It's on you. Like, we need you to step up. And I'm like, okay, you got it. So from there, we won 26 games straight, and we won our regular season. I was MVP, all the good things, scored a 40-point game, was like Gatorade Player of the Week. All these cool things came. And in that is where Miami, I actually had a letter from them that I had gotten, and we moved before that year. And I was just like, man, I hope they didn't forget. So I opened the letter and wrote an email to the athletic department. I was like, not sure if you guys are still interested, but like, would love to go here if you guys are. And they came out to one of my games. This was like late December. They were playing Pepperdine, and I practiced in front of them. And then they're like, we want to see you be more aggressive offensively. And there was a tournament we were playing in Palm Springs, and I think I averaged like 35 and 12 for like 4 days straight. And they're like, okay,
that'll do it.
That'll do it. And then they came out to one of my playoff games, and I had like 37 and like 18 rebounds or something. So they're like, okay, you're the guy. So I actually, contrary to what kids do now, again, I'm someone that I'm not afraid of taking a chance, especially if I'm betting on myself. So I committed before I visited, because I said, okay, ACC.
Right, got your offer.
You'll get ACC, top 50 school. And it had the most, which I wasn't like at the time poignant, but I found very interesting. It had the most diversity of any like major Power 5 school. So I said, okay, I'm getting access to really interesting people from all over the world, top academically, and I'm in the ACC. I get a chance to play against which my dream school was North Carolina. So here we go. Committed before I even visited, was ready to go. I said, I'll figure out whatever I got to figure out when I get there. And that's literally how that journey started.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, in Miami, like you said, diversity, that area just in and of itself is so diverse. People don't realize it when they think of Miami. They think of this massive school like an Ohio State, right? Or that type of
yeah.
School. Actually, small student body.
Exactly.
Very, very kind of private feel to it. But it's in this place that's so culturally diverse because you have the Caribbean right there, and a lot of Latino countries, people are bringing people in, and you have from all over the world. Miami, like exactly. it is culturally diverse at every level. I lived down there for a couple of years, and so that must have been a big shock. LA's a big city, so that's one thing. But going down to University of Miami, Coconut Grove, like 13 seconds from the door, like you have all those things right there, and you're all on your own for the first time.
Yeah, it was technically considered like the USC of the East Coast, but to your point, significantly smaller. So I think when I was there, student body was 7,800, which, right. Ohio State, some of these places, 50 to 100,000. I mean, it's like so many people, you just get lost in the community of it all. Whereas like, no, this is bigger than high school. My high school class was 270, but it wasn't like overwhelming from a size standpoint. And yeah, when I got there, which was it was June 28th of 2010, I knew nothing about the weather.
Yeah, it would have been warm.
Just so green. It was. I'll never forget this. I said bye to my family. Sunny 75 at LAX. I land. I think it was like that evening. It was already like 90 at like 9 o'clock at night. The next morning, summer's in Miami. It rains almost like clockwork 3 times a day. And it just holds like an even 90, like 90 and up.
Yeah, but 90 and 92% humidity. So it's like you're in the shower all day long, walking around with all that humidity just hanging on you. As a SoCal kid, when I ended up in Tampa at first, I was like, oh, people live here intentionally. That's crazy.
Yeah, I felt the same exact way. I was like, you could go to the beach where it's just nice every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Here where you could grab the atmosphere and literally throw it at somebody. Like there was a massive culture shock there. And then to your point, I had all of these systems I had kind of set up for myself with respect to my friends and family, and going out cross country, different time zone, didn't know any of the guys. I went on an official visit later, but this was after I had signed, just to shake hands and meet everyone. And then I got a chance to play with the guys and just let them know who I was. But total culture shock. And most of my team at the time was from North Carolina, from Georgia, from New York, places where like I knew of maybe some AAU teams they played on. Have never seen these people a day in my life. And again, it felt like freshman year of high school. Just now I'm sitting in a dorm, and most of the dorms in Miami, if you've never been there, freshman dorms are not nice. They're about wide enough that I can touch both walls if I'm laying down. So it was like throw you in the mix right into classes. Summer session 2, I had, I think, somewhere between 2 to 5 classes. And then now basketball training, film studying, athletic training, weight room stuff, all of these things that like I had been doing to a certain extent, because again, Harvard Westlake's a great school. We did have those things, but this was like, okay, now where school was weighted above sports, that paradigm just shifted. And if you don't crush it here, you're out. And it was a very humbling and intense start to my journey for sure.
Not that they didn't at Harvard Westlake. I'm sure they had people that were always kind of looking for that spot if you lost it. But once you're playing college sports, if you're not cutting it, next guy up, until they find the guy. And there isn't a whole lot of loyalty. And now, because you are right at adult age, they treat you like an adult. There isn't a whole lot of mentoring going on at that level.
No. And that was the part, again, because I had been comfortable with asking questions and doing those things. And this is now flipping on that switch of like, well, this gets me where I need to go. So, I love my teammates, and I don't want to overshadow that and say that they were bad guys. They're amazing human beings. But when you first get into a new system, and you maybe are coming in challenging another person that already has that starting role, there's just natural animosity, because again, now we're all the best. We all had that unique, amazing journey, and we all are trying to fight for these jobs where there's only a small subset. 60 people are drafted in the NBA draft every year, and now that's an international deal. So American-wise, it might be down to 40. So we're all looking at each other. We have the same motivations. We're all here for the same purpose, but I want that. And that was it took a toll on me. I was so used to being there for my team and collective success. Not saying that didn't happen, because we did realize that when I was there. We made a ton of history when I was at Miami, but there was still an element, and I'll get into this a little bit more when I get to the NFL, but what makes the team great is because I take care of my own business, which is way different than like, hey, just lift your brothers up and we all have a good time. And like, it's so much fun. That flip of the switch where now I'm like a contractor, or, someone that's being hired on to serve a very specific purpose. That's where that switch was first flicked on.
Yeah, and you may be going there, like you just mentioned, but that really is the case in team sports anyway, right? Getting your game at its peak and doing everything you can to help you be the peak performer, and then figuring out where you plug into that matrix of team is the way that teams become great. Like,
exactly.
I love the teamwork mentality that people are like, oh, got to be team first. Well, what does that mean? Like, if I show up and I'm not in shape, how do I help the team? I have to be all about me at some point. Like, I have to take care of myself. And it's all those great peak performance principles that you on time, doing the work, doing the hard things. Like, you've had the experience growing up, right? I have to do the hard things, get myself disciplined enough that when a hard thing comes up, I can get through that. So it's all those peak performance things, the workouts, eating right, sleeping right, taking care of school. And then I plug that into a team. It's kind of how it works all together. And so that's one of those things that you learn in college. I remember going to Cal for the first time, talking about diversity coming from Orange County.
Yeah.
That was a huge jump. And it was so unique to me trying to figure that out and how you fit in with all those distractions.
Exactly.
To be able to get that straight. So now you're playing in the ACC. Talk to me. I mean, everybody there, like you said, if you weren't the best dude in your league, you're probably not playing college basketball.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, or your league was pretty special. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing that helped me is, the local talent in Los Angeles before I got to Miami. This is why I felt so confident walking into this opportunity. Was every tournament I was seeing Drew Holiday, DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard, Brandon Jennings, all these guys who are formidable players that are either still playing or played a long time in the NBA, and that was just the top talent. So getting to the ACC, I was like, oh yeah, this is like playing the guys I always play. It's just, instead of it being one guy's good and four are decent, it's like, okay, now I'm just playing against five of them. And I actually started early in my freshman year and had a very humbling experience because my first ACC game was at Cameron Indoor. Great experience because at the time, the Duke Blue Devils had the Plumlee brothers, Mason and Miles Plumlee, and I was playing power forward. So I'm 6'5", and my matchup is 7 feet tall. I was like, oh, this is great. Just
awesome.
Looking right into just finding out, like, where am I at on the totem pole? And it was a rocky road. I was academic All-American, which is amazing because of, again, my Harvard Westlake background. But I went through some highs and lows because I had rested a bit on my athleticism and hadn't, what I learned, I didn't really understand the game as much as I thought. And that's when I was starting to learn sets and systems and how plays are ran and how to read defenses and people's consistencies and kind of what they do, their tendencies. I'd never studied any of that stuff. And as a student, which I loved, I got really into that, but it also came with some harsh lessons and some tough learning curves and concussions I had, just making silly decisions, getting hit, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So freshman year, there was, again, it was a very humbling experience. And then the other thing that I dealt with kind of through that was our coaching staff left. Mm-hmm. So first time ever experiencing that, like a full regime change. Now, the gentleman and the staff that came in with Coach Larinaga, who's now been there and done amazing things, just took Miami to the Final Four. Again, you were recruited from a previous staff. They knew you. They had built up, this stack of information on who you are, why you're here, blah, blah, blah. And then you just pull that ripcord and insert a new person who knows nothing about you.
Well, and that previous staff has to validate their choice too.
Exactly.
Right? They have to make you their guy because they spent a scholarship on you. The next staff is like, oh, the other guy did that. So
yeah, don't know you. So sophomore year, rocky road. He had, Coach L at the time had known some of the folks, and I at the time was still trying to figure out, where am I? How am I going to play? I'm now smaller. I was used to being one of the tallest guys. How do I enhance my game? And in that, kind of got lost in the shuffle. So my sophomore year, I barely played. And that was really hard mentally. I was the person, I would have this conversation with my dad, and he would always tell me, give them a reason to take you out. Meaning, basically, be so good at everything they ask you to do, they can't find a way to take you off the court. Right. That was the mentality I always went about my training, my classroom, everything. So this was the first time I'm like, okay, showing up early, I'm leaving late, I'm doing the film study, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but it's not translating into an opportunity. And I had a really hard time with that. Junior year, the amazing thing that happened was we came together as a unit. Everyone essentially owned what their skill set was. Mine at that level was driving to the basket, defending all 5 positions, being the hustler, being the guy on the practice court to give everyone, set that bar from an effort standpoint to push those guys. But no, I was not the leading scorer. I was not the person that gets all the accolades. And I had to become okay with that. And to me, that was one of the best learning lessons, because in that moment, we also won 12 games, I think 12 or 13 games straight in the ACC, which was a record. We won the regular season ACC for the first time in Miami history. We won the ACC tournament for the first time in Miami history. And we went to the Sweet 16, which up until the last handful of years, we had gone the furthest in school history. And it was the fastest, coolest, most exciting journey I've ever experienced being a part of all of those things. But it was that shift from being a star to being a piece of a project, which, you know, to some that can just totally obliterate your perception of self.
Without a doubt, and destroy your confidence.
Exactly.
Because if you're the guy who has put themselves up on that pedestal the whole time, or people have, oftentimes you get that. I've seen it happen to former teammates of mine where they were so good and so talented, and all the way along, people have been propping them up emotionally because they were so talented. And then all of a sudden they get to that level, whether it be college or the NFL or, you know, one of the pro levels. And all of a sudden everybody there is just as much a dude as you are.
Yeah.
And now you have to have that fortitude, that grit that we talked about earlier, to be able to push through it and overcome. And so a lot of people can't make that switch, and that's the end of their career.
Exactly. And that's where I had a moment. This was middle of my junior year. Like, we were doing very well, but the opportunities were far and few between. And I looked myself in the mirror and I said, okay, if you want to get where the goal is, which is pro sports, do everything you can for your teammates, but you need to get back to what got you here, which was I had abandoned my systems, my playing style, I'm going to come in, I have these targets for this opportunity. All that stuff had gone out the window because I'm like, I don't even know what it's like to sit for 18 minutes and I play 6 minutes a game, but the expectation is that your production is just as high as everyone else's. You know, if we're up by 10, when you come out, we need to be up by 16. That's on you. And playing that, like, okay, I'm sitting, I'm cold, some moments I'm bored. Hey, someone just got hurt. Hey, someone's got 3 fouls. Hey, whatever the opportunity is, next man up. The expectation is not lower because I've been sitting there. And that paradigm shift mentally of like, oh, okay, I need to be ready no matter what, whenever the opportunity kind of shows up. That's where that mind muscle started to be worked going into senior year and then into the big transition into playing football.
And that's a huge one, right? That's a tough one. I had a rough time with that in the NFL because I came in Tampa and they drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks the same year, Craig Erickson, who's a fellow Hurricane with you, and then me. We both got drafted, and we were exactly the same dude. Sam Weiss was our head coach, and he was trying to, draft the next Joe Montana. And so he 6'2", 208, that area, 210. Like, we were exactly the same dude. His feet were about that much quicker, and my arm was about that much strong. But like, if you were to put us on paper, you couldn't tell us apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but he was a 3rd round pick. I was an 8th round pick. And now you've got to find opportunity where it presents, and you're studying an NFL playbook, and it's a huge difference from a college playbook. And you've got to be ready if they ask the question, no matter when it is. And it's tough to do when you're at that age and you have been the star, no doubt about it. And so everybody is, well, not everybody, but most people are hit with that at some point in their professional career where they've got to figure that out.
Absolutely. And for me, it started with my junior year, and then going into senior year, I felt like my opportunity was in front of me and it was mine to take ownership on. So that summer, I would say I overcorrected, but in the best possible way. Is I was living with my brother at the time. He had just graduated from undergrad. He moved down to Miami with me. We got an apartment together, and he actually, side story, but had lost 100 pounds in a year.
Oh,
he decided enough's enough. I want to feel better. I want to feel right. Did what he had to do. So we were both in this mindset of like, let's make it happen. Like, we're going to do some things that we didn't expect we're capable of. So that summer, I started training 6 times a day, 6 days a week.
Oh boy.
Yeah. When I say overcorrected, I mean overcorrected. So I was 245, 6'5", 245 at the end of my junior year. I got down to 220, and my body fat was under 3%. Yoga, shooting, weightlifting, swimming, rowing, more shooting, more basketball, everything. And I literally had like a 12-hour schedule mixed in with my classwork, because I set myself up where my last semester of college, I had one class, like one elective. So I said, okay, I'm going all in. This is going to be my hardest swing, and we'll see if anything happens from this. So I got myself into the craziest shape of my life, got my skill development and learned my game and why I can be productive at the highest level it had to date. And this is where the NFL started to come in, because I had gotten on Sports Center my senior year a couple of times for some lobs and cool catches above the rim. And going into ACC play, we were supposed to literally win like 2 games that year. We ended up going 500, which was pretty awesome. And we lost to NC State. And looking at my season, I was so excited because the start of the year left off like the beginning of, my junior year. Very little play. Going into conference play, I had to sit down with my coach and basically asked him, what do I need to do to be better? And we had a very fruitful conversation there. And my challenge was like, just give me the opportunity to prove to you that I can be of value to this team. I'm not asking for playing time. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just asking to look at my playing style and tell me what I'm doing right or wrong, and I will fix it. And from there, I played 36 to 40 minutes a game. I was doing everything that kind of served my plan and process. And at the end of it, again, I my very last game, I left with a smile on my face, because I said, whatever happens from here, I gave it everything I got. And the cool thing that happened from that is I had a meeting with the coaching staff and was letting them know, my intention is I'm going to graduate with my economics degree. I want to play basketball overseas. How can we make that happen? So we had a very quick conversation about that. On the flight home, Coach L sits me down and says, okay, I have this weird scenario. I'm just running by you. I'm like, okay, yeah, what's going on? He's like, so a scout from the Denver Broncos has been contacting us basically since like January. This was mid-March, wanting to see if you want to play football. And I burst out laughing. I'm like, how? And the reason why I started laughing is because when I first committed to Miami, because of my size, an article came out that said I was a 2-sport athlete. And I like, my first ever interview in Miami, I was like, look, I don't even watch football. Like, I'm not a fan. I don't know anything about anything. Like, my dad was a Raiders fan when the Raiders were in LA. I haven't seen it since the 2001 Super Bowl when they lost. So, like, I don't know anything about football. And they're like, yeah, we told them, but, they're still interested. So I came home, I told my brother, and he started laughing too. And he's like, well, just have a phone call with the guy. Like, pick his brain, see, like, what, why do you want to talk to me? So we had that phone call, and he said, look, I just want to take you through basically like a standard pro day. We'll do all the measurables, get you through some routes, and see if you like it. And based off your numbers, maybe we can pick a position that may or may not work for you. So
he already had tight end set in his head. He was already thinking that way.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Didn't tell me.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. In my mind, the only person I really knew of specifically, Jimmy Graham, I had met my freshman year because he was a rookie on the Saints my freshman year, and he popped in. We had a quick conversation, and everyone used to tell me, oh, you and Jimmy have so much in common. Between Jimmy Graham and Andre Johnson, who Andre was the one person I was like, man, if I could be a football player, I'd want to be that guy. But I never watched the Houston Texans, didn't even know he was on the Texans, just heard his name, was like, man, that guy seems awesome. So I spent 7 days trying to learn how to catch a football and walking through the combine drills, which were very similar to the NBA, but just longer. And I said, I guess I'm doing this. So this worked in my favor, but was a complete mistake, is I tried to pick a random day where no one would basically be at the football field because they were finishing their spring training. I didn't realize I picked the last day of spring training because they had already had their pro day. I didn't want to be a part of that because I said, that's a disrespect. To me, that's disrespectful to those guys. They bent over backwards for that. I don't want to be a part of that. So I go in this workout. We go to the gym. I do 14 reps at 225, which I was pleasantly surprised at. My max was 365 at the time. So I was like, okay, that's pretty good. My vert was 39. My broad was 10.2 or 10.3. And then they showed me how to get into a 40 stance, and I ran a 4.58. Ooh, I was like, this seems like this is going kind of well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I ended up running routes for about an hour. I caught every single pass. And the scout was pleasantly surprised. He was like, well, if you were over 4.80, I was going to say DN. If you were sub 4.5, I would say receiver, but you were right in the sweet spot. So what do you think about tight end? I was like, dude, that means nothing to, I don't know what a tight end is.
Right.
He started laughing, and my brother had the brilliant idea. He said, hey, you should make a Twitter account and tweet at the NFL and all its major publications. Just see if you can get a second workout. Because, like, maybe the Broncos just go in a different direction. You don't know. So if you go to my Twitter account, it's my first tweet. And from that, I actually ended up doing another 12 workouts in the span of about 6 weeks. And then I did phone interviews. Like, I was like having to step out of class, my one class. But I did phone interviews with almost everybody in the NFL. Some of it was people just asking me like, yo, is this legit or not? And then some was like, true, let me screen and figure out, who are you? What are you doing? And the cool thing that happened from that is, again, I met Jimmy my freshman year during his bye week, and my athletic trainer, who's now the head athletic trainer for the Miami Heat, so excited for them, put me in touch with Jimmy. And Jimmy actually ended up being my big brother. He taught me everything about the basics of the sport. I signed with his agency. I mean, everything. He brought me up to speed. In our first conversation, he said, well, you need to think very clearly about this, because football is not fun. Basketball is a lot of fun. Football, you need to figure out why you're here. And if you can figure that out, I work out at 8 a.m. and I'll see you there. And then just smash. So it's like, okay. Never been to the football side of the program other than that one workout I did. And again, what kind of led to that is all of the Miami Herald and everyone was there seeing me run routes with the Broncos scouts. So I have this crazy moment. I have this conversation with Jimmy, and now I'm doing these workouts and working out with Miami's greats. And that's basically like how my journey started. And one of my last workouts was the Indianapolis Colts. And they were very, very, very interested. And their staff at the time had a number of folks from the University of Miami, and then also a number of folks who were on the San Diego Chargers coaching staff with Antonio Gates when he first joined the NFL. So they were quite familiar with helping an athlete transition.
That is, wow. What a journey, man. That is, most people would dream about that. Most guys are looking for that look, obviously, but to get that chance, clearly you put yourself in that position with the hard work and everything else. And then, so I'm curious, you said if you could figure out why. So what was your why in terms of playing? Because that is, like, if you could figure out why, football is not, for quarterbacks, it can be pretty fun, but you're still getting hit and, it's very physical. So what was your why for football?
I mean, honestly, early on, my why was because why not? That's where it started, was just, why not try this? Why not bet on yourself? But it's actually something that I continue to work and try and process. And for me, the why was reflecting on what my family did for me, reflecting on what, all these folks who had my back and all these folks who made me feel like chasing a dream wasn't that. Like, it was actually an attainable goal. And the motivation that kind of came from that is like, look, by me doing this, I'm saying thank you back to everybody. That's where my mind went, at least to start, was these folks got me here to help me earn free school, and now I have an opportunity to be a professional athlete. So what? It's not basketball. Who cares? It's an opportunity to realize something you set out to do when you were 5. It's happening. Be present. And that's where my mind went, was like, I'm doing this, yes, for myself, because, this is so cool. This is so exciting. But I'm doing this because what I can give back to my friends, to my family, to myself, and knowing that, like, someone's giving you, kicking open a door for you, cracking a door open for you. This is your opportunity to kick it down. That was enough for me to look at this opportunity and say, okay, I'm all in. Let's do this. And, on the back end, not that I was playing this game, but training camp starts in July. Most of the training camps for playing overseas started in September. So I did have a little bit of a grace period to say, okay, I'm going to try this, both feet in. And if I don't like it, yes, I can switch back to basketball. But I'll tell you, this is exactly how this moment happened. I took my last final on a Thursday. I graduated on Friday. It was my birthday on Saturday. And on Sunday, I signed with the Indianapolis Colts. On Monday, I was in off-season workouts. There was no like grace period.
No breathing room whatsoever.
No. It was like, welcome to Indianapolis. I didn't even know who Andrew Luck was. I didn't know anything about it. Anything about anything. I was just like, okay, Indianapolis. I have an uncle that lives there. I've been there once when I was like 8. All right, I guess I'm going to the Midwest. And bam, I was there with a jersey on.
And you talk about fish out of water, right? So you feel that way as a freshman going into high school. And so you had to overcome that. And then you get to college and realize, oh boy, I'm not the dude like I was in high school. So, right, so you're overcoming that. You have never played football before in your life. And you show up in an NFL locker room.
Yeah.
What the hell was that like?
That was where I learned what imposter syndrome was.
Yes.
Because the whole flight, I'm like, why would anybody in this locker room, in this building, give me 2 seconds of their time? I didn't even know there was 11 people on both sides of the ball. Like when I say green, I mean like I started playing Madden, the video game, just to get familiar with like, okay, so there's receivers on both sides, running backs in the back. Like it was like that. And now I'm sitting here where grown men are trying to feed their family. And I'm here like, this sounds fun. Like it was another, and being in the Midwest, it was a massive culture shock. But the best thing that happened was one of the first lessons that was brought up, and there's a lot of, I consider football like a game of chess, right? As opposed to basketball, I consider it like a game of flow. And one of the early conversations we had in our rookie meetings, it was 2 things. One, it was find a vet. Don't interrupt them. Don't speak to them. Find a vet in the locker room and start to study their habits. 2 was be seen, not heard. Just be there. Be present. You're in the pros. Like you are at the top. There is not another level above this. Be in the building. Get to know the folks around you. If you're shy, just embrace being shy. Just be here. And I took that very seriously. There was so much, like just sitting in the cafeteria, hearing guys talk about coverages and plays and formation. I'm like, I don't even know, like, where do I even start? I had a notebook and I was just drawing like wide receiver, left tackle, left guard, center, like just, okay, I got that. Okay. Now what is on the ball and what is off the ball? And like my first ever day, I just woke up like get in a 3-point stance, run a flat route. What? Do what and go where? And they're like, just run to the right and turn. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was like starting from scratch. It was like being almost like the feeling of like being reborn, because everyone's telling me, oh, you have all these gifts and they're gonna apply and you just need to give it time. And I'm like, I don't understand the language. I don't understand the job. I'm starting to put on weight that I just lost. Like nothing. And now I have all this gear. At the time it's off season, so we have a helmet. So now I have 10 pounds on my head. I can't see. And I got gloves on and all these things and cleats that aren't comfortable. And I'm like, what has happened? Like, why did I choose to do this to myself? That was my first like run of it. Was just like, I could have just kept shooting baskets, but like I just have chosen to put myself in like the heat, like in the front lines of challenges. And it was it's still reflecting on it. It's still just so funny thinking how naive I was.
It's so crazy because coming from college, an NFL playbook and concepts and terminology is so detailed and so complicated. And you've already had years of study and preparation and full understanding of the game and coaching. And I mean, just learning how to watch film and speak to each other is a huge deal. It was a completely new language. It's like, not only did they drop you in the middle of some language that you don't understand whatsoever, but you had a very detail-oriented task that you were supposed to do. And the only way to learn it is in that language. There's no other way to learn it than to hear the verbiage of what they're saying. And so, like, that is drinking from a fire hose times 10.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, because to your point, tight end is not the easiest job.
No, you're a hybrid. You have to block
Exactly.
and you have to run routes and you have to know where you are in each concept and why. It's crazy.
Exactly. So the immediate expectation was you need to learn multiple positions. You need to learn, inline, receiver stance, and backfield. And you're going to play on all 4 special teams. Never knew what special teams was.
What's a special team?
What's a special team? Why is that the first meeting of the day? Why is everything we do in a meeting situationally based off what happens special teams wise? So it's like there was languages within the languages that I was just trying to get the base knowledge, but I don't only need to just know, like, okay, when they say such and such formation right, well, sometimes I'm on the right, but then sometimes I'm on the left, and then sometimes I start on the right and go to the left. And
flip to the left, yeah.
I'm like, how am I going to make any sense of any of this? And that was, most of my rookie year was just see if I could hear the play, picture it, is where I started, and then starting to draw it. And the reason I think that I was able to stay in Indy for as long as I went back to the moments at Harvard Westlake. The first thing I did is I went to my coaches and was like, okay, I think we all get the elephant in the room. I don't know what the hell is going on. Can you teach me how to study? I don't even know, like, what am I even supposed to watch? Because when you get in the off season, most teams are already prepping for week 1. They're like, okay, we're going to teach a bunch of stuff, but generally speaking, we know we've got the Packers. So everything is kind of geared toward the Packers in maybe the first couple of weeks. And none of that, what is a zone run versus a gap scheme versus draws, like so many things. And the awesome experience I had was once I got into the building, and the guys saw that I was willing to do whatever was asked of me. I wasn't frustrated because I was on special teams. I didn't know that was like a lower level opportunity, arguably, but it's not. Could catch the ball, could create space, was willing to block, which, at the time it was like, oh, if you're a hybrid, you don't have to. You're an Indianapolis Colts tight end. You pick up your hard hat and you make it happen. There is no frills here. Like, you do your job and then you go home. And the tight end room at the time was Colby Fleener, who was second round out of Stanford, Dwayne Allen out of Clemson, and Jack Doyle, who undrafted guy, started it at Tennessee, ended up being picked up late in the season to Indy. Jack went on to be multiple-time Pro Bowler, amazing stuff. So these 3 guys are the guys. And the tremendous blessing was between those 3 and my coach at the time, who was a special assistant, slowly became the OC. His name is Rob Chudzinski. Between those 4 people, every single day, they were patient with me. They tried to help me. They pulled me aside, extra film meetings. Hey, one of the first things that I did, which honestly was how I started my own self-study, was I went through all of the tight ends in the NFL and just found everyone that had a history of playing basketball. Because I was like, at least I'm familiar with their movement patterns, because they've had to adopt a new language. Later on, as I got more into the sport, then I could start to study folks like Rob Gronkowski and folks, people who have been doing it their whole lives, because I understood some of the nuances that they were achieving. But watching those basketball players, watching Jimmy, watching Antonio, watching, so many of these amazing athletes that had transitioned over, I didn't know the play, didn't know the route, but was just starting to understand like, oh, okay, that's how he's using his body language, and that's how he's using his feet, and little things there. And then I would go back in front of my teammates and in front of Chud, and we would meet during the regular season and start to diagnose those things. So we literally started with like, here's cover 2 on a screen, tell me everyone's position. And then we would get to like disguises, and then formationally go up on the whiteboard. I'm going to just put up a formation and you write everyone's route. And then we went to write their route if they have a conversion.
Their adjustment, yeah.
Exactly. So then write the adjustment. So by the time, again, I was very blessed because my willingness to study. So I got a job on the practice squad all 16 weeks. My first year, we went to the AFC Championship. It was the Deflategate year. So I got to see a 12-4 season, rise to the playoffs, great things, tough things. Our team at the time had so many vets, and I got to see what it looked like to be successful. And the vet I choose to study was Reggie Wayne, who we later ended up becoming quite close friends. But I would just start to like track, when did he show up in the building? Okay, when did he leave? Okay, when does he do extra film? When does he do extra catching? When does he do extra this, extra that? And then I started saying, okay, so I can do that. I can do those things, and I can set up that tape for myself. And then eventually I was able to walk up to Reggie and be like, hey man, so you don't know this, but I kind of watch everything you do. That'd be creepy.
Fucker.
You're kind of the reason why I'm having success.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is great. So talk about the lessons that you learned. Eventually, and we could do this all day long, right? We could talk about this, but kind of getting to the end here, you go on and you become active. You become a dude who is now contributing. You are now playing football in the NFL. What was that like?
Oh man, that was it. It wasn't the dream, and then it became a dream come true. My first ever game, or my first ever catch, which I'll never forget. We were playing against the Houston Texans, Sunday Night Football. This was like six weeks into the season. I've been all 4 core, and I'm like, man, I just want to get that first catch. And the cool thing is that year, 2 Canes, 2 former, or which I believe will be Hall of Famers, joined the Indianapolis Colts, and that was Andre Johnson and Frank Gore. And I got very close with those guys, and they just kept telling me, like, man, you're doing all the right things. You just need to earn the respect of your quarterback. Just keep working. So, next man up mentality, week 6, Sunday Night Football, J.J. Watt, Clowney, all the guys. Everyone gets injured. Literally everyone. We had 2 receivers and 2 tight ends left. And this was like going midway through the first quarter. Like everybody got hurt. It was just one of those days. And my first catch was off a run action pass that I popped for 35 yards. Didn't even know what to do when I got the ball. Just ran up the sideline. Was like not even prepared to make a move. I was like, oh my God, I have the ball. Just so much adrenaline. And I didn't realize how fast I was running. They're like, dude, that was like a 30-yard catch. I was like, whoa. And I got smoked on the sideline. Like the DB took my thighs out, front flipped over myself. I just popped up like, oh my God, it happened. And I have like a play-by-play picture of it, of me just upside down, contorted, still like good with my ball security, trying to protect the ball. And I'll never forget that, because that game, I got a few more opportunities. We ended up losing in overtime, but we went back on the bus to go home, and I had texts from Jimmy and Reggie and Andre and Frank and Jonathan Vilma and DJ, like all these people who I'm like, I'm an NFL player. Like, real respected veterans are congratulating me on my first time making a play on the highest stage of a sport that I had no experience of 2 years ago. Like, this is actually happening. And it was such a it was a euphoria in one, but then it was also like, okay, now that you've tasted it, how do I make this more? Because I understand, like, okay, all those things they were telling me when I first started, I can do these things now. And like, I am as capable as they did say. And it ended up being such a amazing journey throughout there. I ended up scoring, a number of touchdowns in places I never would have thought I'd ever step foot in, playing against Tom Brady and Gronk and all those guys in Foxborough. I would argue 2 touchdowns. They downed me on the one, but I have my best game of my life was actually my last season. I got cut the week before, got brought back on a short week, and ended up having one of the best games of my life in front of my fiance in Boston against the reigning Super Bowl champs. And it was just like, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, even reflecting on it now, it's like how did that happen? It happened so fast. It was truly amazing.
Yeah. I mean, as you reflect back over the whole journey, right? Your parents making that first commitment of you playing up, learning to compete against dudes that are just more talented, more skills than you have, more growth, all those things. And it takes you to your parents making the commitment, right? And then another step up at Harvard Westlake, and then another step up at your whole career sounds to me, and I don't mean to speak out of turn, right? It's your career, but like it was gearing towards that hardest challenge ever. People have no idea how hard it is to play professional football. And that's when I came into it, that's what I was saying. Like I have people like, oh yeah, I could have played if I wanted to. God love you. No, you couldn't. It's really, really, really hard. And it's such a selection criteria to get down to the pinnacle of anything. Yeah. But now you're talking about the NFL. These are the greatest athletes in the world who can do these things. And it's just an amazing experience. What's the mindset? What's your main takeaway? If you were to pick one thing, what is your main takeaway? Because I know what I hear when I hear you say it. I'm not going to say it yet, but I want to hear your takeaway.
I mean, my biggest one is it's simple, right? It's life is what you make it. Like everything that I've chosen to do, like, yes, I use the gifts that God gave me to get myself where I needed to go, but it's because I considered that I can do these things. I never looked at something, even in the peak of my own fear or crippling anxiety or whatever that may be, and just said, no. Like, no, you can't do it. It's too much. It's too big of an ask. You're not willing to commit. Each one of those big moments, Harvard, Westlake, Miami, Indianapolis Colts, making all these transitions, all the things that happened to get there, it still stemmed from the same thing, which was I just took ownership. I said, if this is what I want, if this is what I want to do, how am I going to get it done? As opposed to looking at the top of the mountain saying, I have no idea how to get there.
Which is what I was going to get to. My thought process is, as I listen to your story, and it's a lot of what I have done my whole year. I am a my whole life, ready, fire, aim guy. Like, say yes, and then figure it out.
Yeah.
You can't have all the answers beforehand. I think so many people are crippled because they want to know all the answers and the outcome and everything before they get in. They're like, I have to know everything. I have to have all the answers. I want to be sure that I'm going to be secure and safe and this is going to work out. Well, that ain't the way the life works. If you want a 9-to-5 job and you can do that. You can go home at 5 and you can be done with it and you can be there. That's fine. That's great if that's what you want. But if you want to exceed, if you want to have real high performance habits and real high performance success, there's a lot of guessing involved, and you've got to take the shot, maybe even when you're not ready. And that's as I hear you talking about it, and that was it for me too. Am I ready for the NFL? I don't know. I know when I got to Cal, I knew I wasn't ready to play college football. I got there and I watched one of our fullbacks get hit by a DB on the sideline, and I'm like, I can't play here. Like, I cannot play at this level. There's not a chance because I was a freshman. And so you just got to keep doing the work, figure it out later, which, I mean, that's, for me, as I listen to your story, it's an amazing story. But that's the motto of your story to me.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And I think, and again, a lot of it goes back to that why. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? Because if you're only doing something merely for the results, the moment you either hit those results or you don't, you're going to be so out of touch with any value that actually came from the experience. But if you're saying, hey, I'm doing this for a greater purpose, like my motivation started with just truly trying to say thank you back to the people who got me in this moment. If later was like, oh, wow, like made some decent money and things are going pretty well, that's cool. That was more just like, it felt like it just so happened to happen. It wasn't something like, oh, I'm here because I want to be $1 million man. And that's the only reason I'm here. And then if I didn't hit that, I suck. Like, no, that's so irrelevant. And to your point, there's so many opportunities where you're like, okay, I'm only going to do this if I know exactly where that end goal is. And so many things and so many experiences that I've had was the starting part. You start and then you quickly find out, oh, either this was or wasn't what I wanted it to be. And now I either have the opportunity to do it this way or make it my own and get creative and have fun within the process. And then, yeah, you'll look up and you're like, I've done a lot of really cool things. But again, that wasn't the motivation. It was just, oh, I see a problem. I see an opportunity here. Let me tap into this and see where it takes me. And then bam, you have a resume, like all these cool things come of it.
Yeah, that is so fantastic. So I like, there's so many life lessons in there, and we could go on forever in terms of what you did. Like you just, there's storyline and then subplot all the way through your story, which is awesome. We don't have time today. Where can people find you now? I know that you are coaching young athletes and college athletes and pro athletes. So where can they get a hold of you today looking for that? Tell me what you do and how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so best place to find me right now is on Instagram. My handle is Swooperstar86. I love that. And basically what I'm trying to do is, from all this experience, from all these things that we've talked about, again, I've noticed there's this massive opportunity missed for so many athletes when they are trying to aspire for something. And a lot of the things that we're talking about today do apply to life in general. But my motivation has been, how can I help the next generation of athletes, be it basketball or football, to achieve those dreams and realistically understand how can I get to this small subset of opportunities that I'm chasing. And, I get really excited, and through COVID, I actually started doing a little bit of coaching, and that's where I saw for the first time passing verbally my information to someone and seeing them take it and run with it and go and have success. That was sweeter than anything else that I have ever experienced. And that's what I'm really putting. It's my passion. It's my project. It's what I'm doing moving forward. So feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. And if not, there's a lot of amazing things that I think are going to be coming from my end. And I'm very excited to work with this next generation.
Yeah, and you'll be, obviously, I've been a coach for a long time at this level. It's how we kind of ran into each other. And so you'll be seeing me and Swooperstar, what was it, 86?
Swooperstar 86.
Yes, working together in the near future here to help young athletes. It really is. To be able to bring your life experience, it's just amazing to young athletes, because young athletes deal with all these things in different ways in different situations. But to be able to bring that, and I think I added a perspective in that you had to learn the game when you were already established in another sport. And so that just adds a perspective when you're teaching. You had to learn it from scratch. There was no attrition to your game, right? You didn't have it from time one where you knew what a 3-point stance was from 8 years old. You had to become that athlete. So if you're a young athlete, if you're looking for help, obviously Instagram is a place. You'll find us together. There'll be stuff coming out on the web later on as well for coaching. But dude, awesome for you to share your story here today. It's inspiring for anybody at home. That was so much fun. Like, I just imagining being in your spot. It's insane. And it's so cool because I love that stuff. I love being a little bit uncomfortable and pushing yourself, being a little bit uncomfortable. You have to be if you want to be that guy to the next level. And so I could hear a lot of discomfort in that story, but a lot of growth too.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a fun journey. It's fun to reflect back on it and kind of see where everything, landed and how it all matriculated. So I appreciate you having me on. I know we've got some fun things in store for folks, and I'm quite excited about everything.
Absolutely. Everybody share this out. If you got a young athlete in your life, if you are a parent of a young athlete, if you are into sports, if you're having life challenges, like the lessons in here do pertain to life. This matters for people at home. I love the stories, and that's kind of what we focus on. Through athletics, we are building better people. And it's not just everybody's going to get a college scholarship. That's not it. But they are going to become a better person through the coaching, through the sports, through the trials, and building that grit. So important. Appreciate you all listening today. There'll be more coming up, but share this one out because this is a big one and for anybody in your life who plays sports. And I will talk to you guys again soon.